It is summer, it is hot, so we're wearing the least amount of clothing that is necessary. Okay? Okay. I am very, very late to doing my May reading wrap up, and there are a few reasons for this. Number one, I got sick right after my birthday, and number two, the camera on my phone had like a gaping hole in it for some unknown reason. So without further ado, let's get into a very, very late May reading wrap up. In May, I read 7 books, and honestly, May was a pretty solid reading month for me. I have my little stats right here. And every time I read a book, it goes into my little reading journal. My best friend bought me this, and then I decorated it nicely. And the back, and it's super cute. But I will link the reading journal somewhere in the bottom if you like kind of how the layout looks when I'm going through it. This is absolutely 100% not sponsored, and you can tell that based on how many views my videos get. So when I read a book, there's like blank pages. Let me go to like a different month so I could show you what I mean. There's like dotted pages like this. In the beginning of the year, I wasn't really sure what to do with them. And then I was like, oh, I'll use them as quote pages. And in the beginning of the year, that's exactly what they were. They were written quotes just randomly scattered across the page. And as the months progressed, I think in like March is when I started using more brain cells. And I realized that I could combine my little artsy side with the quotes. And now the quote pages are much more intricate than they were before. And it's exciting. So we have my little handy dandy book here. So the very first book that I read is How to Be Eaten by Maria Adelman. I read this for the Buzzword reading challenge that Kayla over at Books and Lala does every year. And May's theme was 2 and 2. Her intentions there were, this is the title version also, not the cover part, because that's new this year. But the title challenge was 2-2, and I
am 6 minutes into recording, and everything that could go wrong is going wrong. But nothing is going to stop me from finally making this video. So, if the camera is slightly crooked, that is because the tripod decided to die, and the camera went beep. So now, the light is holding up the camera on the tripod, and we're going to go with the flow. And if when I'm editing this is absolutely atrocious, we will revisit this. The cat's going to end up knocking it down. I already know where this is going.
Okay, let's try that again. The Buzzword title challenge for the month of May was 2 and 2, so T-O and T-O-O. And her intention, I believe that she explains in her initial Buzzword challenge video, was that the goal was how to, or a guide to those types of books. I've actually had How to Be Eaten sitting on my TBR shelf for way too long, and I finally decided to pick it up. And honestly, this one was a little disappointing. I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I 100% understood what the intention with this book was. I think that there is a large audience for this book. I just don't think that I was the right audience. And Maria Adelman's writing was enjoyable, but at times I felt like it got very repetitive. And considering that it was a relatively short book, there are a lot of different kind of plot lines you're following here, and I don't even want to say plot lines, I guess like the history of these characters in the present day setting, and they're all telling their backstories. Basically, this is a bunch of different fairy tales kind of thrown into present time. And yeah, in present day New York City, 5 women meet in a basement support group to process their trauma. And all of the people that are in there are from fairy tales. So you have Gretel, you have Ruby, Ashley, Raina. There's a bunch of them, but like obviously Gretel, Hansel and Gretel. Ruby is Little Red Riding Hood. The concept was definitely more intriguing than the execution. So unfortunately, this was a 2.5 star read for me. But if the premise sounds interesting and you read kind of, you should probably check trigger warnings and stuff for this one. But overall, it wasn't a horrible book, but it just definitely was not for me. The other part of this was that as much as this was the 2 for the title part of the Buzzword Reading Challenge, the cover challenge, which is new this year, was eyes. And are those the best eyes? Probably not. But are they eyes? Indeed. So it counted, it worked, I was happy. Following that, I actually read Books in Lala's Literally Dead Book Club pick, and unfortunately I was not able to pop into the live discussion for that one. But I read Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker. And this one I gave 3.75 stars. I actually enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. I've always said that for me personally, reading about COVID is not something that I even remotely would find enjoyable. And as much as this was about COVID, it was also about a lot of other things. So I think that if you're initially thrown off by this idea of reading a book about COVID, I actually had a very good time reading this. And I kind of wish the horror went even further than it did, but there were certain parts of this book that were absolutely horrific and disgusting. If you know, you know. The Drain, okay? The Drain. That one was rough. And Brains, rough. So I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I never went into this thinking it would be 5 stars. So 3.75 felt pretty fair, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So this goes to show that even if a book club is reading a book you might not always think you're gonna love, that you might still really enjoy it. Following that, I read Silver Elite by Dani Francis. Now I feel like this one has gotten all sorts of differing opinions. I feel like you're either gonna love this or you're gonna hate this, just like a lot of the other kind of mainstream fantasy romantasy that's going around. Now, if I'm rating this based off of the romance alone, it would probably get a much lower rating. But rating this, kind of putting the romance part of the romantasy on the back burner, I honestly really enjoyed the magic that's going on in this book. And I believe that it's set up very well to continue. So as a whole, I'm currently very intrigued and I'm excited to keep going. I ended up giving it like 4.5. I literally have question marks all around the 4.5. So I'm not exactly sure what I ended up settling on. But in terms of magic system alone and just the way that she set it up to make this a trilogy, I'm intrigued. I'm very excited to hear information about book 2 whenever we get that. Overall, I was pretty pleased. I think that like a lot of romantasies, the romance it was very much like it's very much enemies to lovers, but it's also like the love at first sight, and then it definitely gets a little repetitive. There were certain parts of the book where I think that the enemies to lovers kind of trope kind of balances on this like, we hate each other 1 second, we're in love 1 second. And I think that part was a little much. And I tried to just kind of eliminate that part from my brain for a little bit because I was so intrigued with the rest of what was going on in the story. The fourth book that I read, I actually do own. Could I tell you where it is right now? No. I have the other two right here. But for some reason, when I finished reading it, it didn't go back to its little spot, and now it's all wobbly. I don't know. Where it is, couldn't tell you. I'll find it probably 10 minutes after I make this video. But the fourth book that I read is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Now, I think that I put this book off for so long because something in me knew that it wasn't going to be my favorite V.E. Schwab. And that's so hard because I know that so many people swear by this trilogy, and I have all intentions of continuing the series and hoping for the best, and maybe I'll even revisit A Darker Shade of Magic at another time and maybe give it another shot. Maybe I wasn't focused enough on reading this one this time. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I wholeheartedly believe that my favorite V.E. Schwab is This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. I absolutely fell in love with these when I read them, and I believe I've read each of them twice. And obviously I also did really enjoy The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but I think that V.E. Schwab's writing is I think that some of V.E. Schwab's books, like Addie LaRue, are incredibly character driven, where the plot or even the setting kind of takes a little bit of a back burner. And I believe that I enjoy those types of V.E. Schwab stories more than the stories that do the opposite of that. In A Darker Shade of Magic, I believe that the setting and these Londons are genuinely a focal point and almost like a character in themselves. And there were so many times in A Darker Shade of Magic where I was like, wait, like what is happening? And I think that could be a me problem entirely, but with that being said, that is why I gave it 3 stars. I will probably revisit it at some point because not loving it a V.E. Schwab it hurts my soul. But we're going to try it again probably. And I do have all intentions of reading the remaining 2 books. And I'm also very happy that I still have these covers. So we will get there at some point. The 5th book that I read in the month of May is The Safe Keep, and I'm going to put the author's name somewhere above my head because I know I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, and I want you to be able to write it down if that's what you need to do. Yael van der Wooden. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce the first name. However, this is a historical fiction romance, and I thought about this book for so long after I finished reading it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Considering that it's such a short book, it's under 300 pages, 272 pages, and being a historical fiction romance, I greatly enjoyed not only the romance going on in the book and the way that it's being told to you, but the fact that the time period of the romance is what makes it all come together the way that it is. There are probably a handful of trigger warnings for this one. I forget exactly what time period it is, and I cannot for the life of me, my brain is not functioning, but I will put that on the screen at some point also, just to give you kind of an idea where this historical fiction part is coming from. There is talk of gender inequality. There is talk of same-sex couples. There is talk of the war. There is a lot of things that go on in this book that impact the relationship that is being had. And I liked this. I seen somebody's video. If I figure out who I seen it from first, I'll put that video somewhere in the description also. But somebody talked about this book in the very beginning of May in a video, and however they explained it, I was like, I'm gonna read that. And that's exactly what I did. 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I definitely believe this is one that's worth picking up. The 6th book that I read for May, I have finally came back to Stephen King. Now, me and Mr. King have a love-hate relationship, okay? Okay. I read, I don't know if that's in frame or not, but I read the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, and then I ended up reading Holly, and I don't even think Holly is on the shelf right now. I don't know where I put her. But the moral of the story here is I read The Outsider, Mr. Mercedes, Finding Keepers, and End of Watch, and Holly, all in 1 month last year. And I read all of those other ones because I wanted to read Holly. And I very, very, very much disliked the Holly book. So I put Stephen King off for a little bit, which is sad because I really enjoyed The Outsider and I greatly enjoyed all of the Mr. Mercedes books. And I enjoyed Holly as a character in all of that. But Holly just really was not for me. And I think that kind of goes back to reading about COVID and there was a lot of different things about Holly that I did not enjoy. So coming back to Stephen King, you would think that I would pick one that was like not that intense. No. I picked 11/22/63. This book is massive. Now, something about when I read Stephen King, there's like all these weird little coincidences that happen in the books that randomly start happening around me. So I don't know if Stephen King has like a bird's eye view of my life or what is going on, but it always ends up being creepier than it already is as a Stephen King. And I can't even remember exactly what happened, but at one point they mention a certain road. I don't even remember what the name of the road was. I think I have a picture of it in my phone. And if I do, I'll put it on the screen because it was weird. I was on a bachelorette trip for my friend who's getting married next weekend, and at the exact same time that they named a certain street, the street that I was passing had the same name. Maybe I'm just extra superstitious and weird, but it was a really weird coincidence when this book is like absolutely massive. What are the odds that at that exact moment I drove past that street when I was like 4 hours from home? It was really weird. Anyway, after my little tangent there, I think I settled on giving this 4.5 stars. Not only is this a historical fiction regarding the JFK assassination, which was so interesting and so incredibly emotional to read, but the romance that Stephen King kind of throws into this chaos made it that much more intense and emotional to go through. Our main character in this book is fascinating to follow through all of this, reading about Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK and all of the different parts that went along with the day that he was unfortunately assassinated. Everything that Stephen King did here just worked so well. And I absolutely enjoyed this. And I'm really happy that I decided to pick up a Stephen King again. I also really want to read It now. Am I going to get to that? I don't know. That book's like almost 1,200 pages. This one is 850 pages. So it's a lot more pages than this one. But the fact that Stephen King can intertwine all of his stories in some way or another, even if it's the most minute detail, like there is a little nod to It in here and it makes me want to read It. I don't even own It. I own The Stand and Fairy Tale. So We'll see. Am I gonna buy it soon? Probably, but we'll cross that bridge later. I think that Stephen King's writing is, like, he really is a master storyteller, and it proves true in a lot of his books. Except Holly. Did I say that out loud? I didn't say that out loud. The final book that I read for the month of May is none other than, this one like deserves a drum roll. My Friends by Fredrik Backman. Are you tired of me talking about Fredrik Backman yet? Because if you are, that kind of sucks. Because I'm going to keep talking about Fredrik Backman. Well, there's no more new books. So unless I go back and read some of the ones I have not read, you might not hear about Fredrik Backman for like a little minute. This book was everything I wanted it to be, and then some. This is easily a 5-star read. I absolutely adore the way that Backman tells a story, and this is no different. Literally, not even the actual first page of the story, the dedication page. To anyone who is young and wants to create something, do it. And I get, like, the amount of things that could be highlighted throughout the story, the amount of quotes that you can take from his writing, it's almost hard to do the audiobook because you want to stop every 5 seconds to write, like, to jot down a quote. There's so many. The world is often unkind to new talent, new creations. The new needs friends. Anton Ego. Everything about this book was beautiful. You're following a young girl who is about to turn 18, Louisa. Louisa's about to be 18, and she runs away from her foster home the day before she turns 18. And she goes to a painting in a museum type of area. It's being sold. The painting is being sold. So there are a lot of wealthy people there that are with the intentions of placing bids on this painting. This is such a found family story. This is a kind of deep dive, in a sense, into the emotional traumas that can come with being a part of the foster care system. This is a story of friends, duh, but in such a deeper way than what we say, like, oh, that's my friend, like, that's, like, this is soul friends, this is forever friends, this is... Fredrik Backman's writing will absolutely never cease to amaze me. If Fredrik Backman ever wants to send me an ARC, I think I would actually sob. And please send it in English because I can't read it if you don't. This was the easiest 5-star, the best way to close out my May. I think that it ruined the first week of my June reading because I just could not stop thinking about this book. I have more quotes I can share too. For the quotes page that I do, I made a tiny little sketchbook so I could put more quotes because there was not, I needed a way to encapsulate all of them. So let's read this one. The artist's bookcases were full of poets, like the bookcases of anyone trying to find out how everyone else copes. Imagination is a child's only weapon. Art teaches us to mourn for strangers. Time after time, we fail at being human beings. Being a parent is so strange. All our children's pain belongs to us, but so does all of their joy. I can't. I will read everything that this man writes. Every single word. I could truly rave and speak. I could probably make whole individualized videos on Fredrik Backman's books. And you would probably get annoyed with me if you're not already annoyed with me for some reason, because somebody probably is. I will stop talking about Fredrik Backman, but if I have not convinced you to pick up any of his books, I beg of you, pick up one of his books. And if you've made it to the end of the video and you have read Fredrik Backman, please tell me which one was your absolute favorite, because it's so hard to pick a favorite. But this was absolutely incredible. So if you have not read it, this is, out of all of the books I've talked about today, this one, Stephen King is Stephen King. Like, you should read Stephen King because it's Stephen King. But I feel like the same can be said for Fredrik Backman, at least in my world. So with that, those are the 7. You know, there's a reason that math was not my strong suit. 7. It was 7. The 7 books that I read in May. I am so sorry that I am so delayed, and you will see me very soon this time with a June wrap up. We are not doing too hot in June right now, but we are hopeful that the month will close out well. I am sorry. I love you all. Let me know your favorite Fredrik Backman in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Please. And yeah, that's it.